Hey everyone, welcome back to the Culture Wine Club. This month we've got two reds in the club, and they are both Shiraz and Grenache Mourvedre blends. So a Luddite Saboteur Red and then the Klein Amoskuil QVEVRI Red. Both of these producers you've had in the past, but they're white versions. In the Klein Amoskuil's example, it was actually one of their orange or amber wines. But before we jump into the wines, I do want to let you know about some really amazing events we have coming up. For the first time ever, I have two winemakers visiting from South Africa. We have dinners and tastings planned all over the Bay Area from May 17th through the 23rd. So if you're around, I would really love to see you and introduce you to them. The winemakers are Kiara Scott Farmer, who is the winemaker at Brookdale. And she was the youngest head Black female winemaker in the country when she took over at only age 26. And she's like looked at as a major rising star in the industry. And then I also have Melissa Nelson, who is the owner and winemaker of Genevieve. Genevieve is a sparkling wine producer, only champagne method sparkling wines. She makes incredible Blanc de Blanc, Chardonnay based, extended lees aged wine. So we've got tastings in stores, we've got by the glass takeovers, we've got dinners. So at Day Trip, Greens, Valley in Sonoma, Bay Grape in Oakland, it's gonna be epic. So I'll put a link to all the events in the comments, but again, I would love to see you, and you can always just shoot me a note or even a text if you have my number, and I can set you up with an RSVP. So let's talk about your first wine, the Klein Amoskuil QVEVRI Red 2021. This is a super cool wine for a few reasons. Number one, it is fermented and aged in Georgian Qvevri. We had the white or their amber wine in the February club, so I'll put a link back to that to talk about QVEVRI winemaking. But I think what's important to talk about in this case is the owner of the winery. The owner here is Charles Back. This guy is super, super important to the South African wine history because he was the first to launch an independent winery in the Swartland. Today, there are now more than 35 wineries in this area, but back in '98 when he first got there, there was just 2 co-ops. So he was able to kind of spot out the potential of this area. What's really important is that in this area, there are dozens and dozens of old vineyards, like some of them are over 100 years old, and they're in great shape, but they've been historically just like blended into co-op wines and not looked at as like worthy of an independent bottling. And so Charles was the first person in the late 90s to basically say, look at these vines, look at the quality of them. Why are we blending them away into nameless wines when we could have independent labels that are focusing on these single vineyards? And so today, the Swartland is looked at as like the hotbed of like the renegade kind of pushing the boundary type of winemakers. And in my opinion, the best overall like wine producing region in the country is the Swartland. So Charles's kind of foresight into the quality potential of the Swartland, far beyond just co-ops, ended up launching the Swartland into being looked at as like the hotbed of the best winemakers in the country. So there's about 35 producers in the Swartland today, and every one of them is looked at as very high quality. They keep pushing the boundaries on how dry farming can make better wines, how sustainable and organic viticulture can make better wines. And overall, you have this incredibly talented group of producers there today. So the QVEVRI Red is super, super interesting wine. To me, it's quite a bit of an anomaly. Number one, it will stay open without oxidizing for weeks. I've consumed this wine over the course of literally 2 weeks, and it's been totally consistent from beginning to end. I think that's because the wine ages on the skins for 6 months before it is like racked off. And that is like 6 or 7 times longer than most red wines would ever be on the skins. And that's because oftentimes with that amount of skin contact, you end up with way over extraction of like color, of tannin, of flavor compounds that can become bitter. When you look at the color of the wine, it's actually like pretty clear. Like it's definitely like a dark ruby, but it's not super like deep in color. And I think for that amount of skin contact, that's definitely surprising. But then when you like get into the nose and the palate, like there's all kinds of these like violet and almost like rose and potpourri, like cinnamon and barky spice and like red fruit and a little bit of black fruit, but it's mostly like these kind of raspberry, cranberry, like strawberry notes. And like Syrah and Grenache Mourvedre, when they're blended together, they tend to give you more like robust, powerful, intense wines. And so to find something that's like so light and elegant and like pretty with that kind of skin contact is completely unusual. So now we have Luddite Saboteur Red. This is a blend of Shiraz, Grenache, Mourvedre, and Cabernet. It's coming all from the Walker Bay area or Cape South Coast area of South Africa. So it's about an hour and a half east of Cape Town. So this is a quite cool climate area, which I think works so well with these varieties. I think oftentimes folks want to plant Shiraz, Grenache, Mourvedre, Cab in areas that are fairly warm, so they ripen easier and kind of get any of these herbal components out. However, I think because of this cool climate mixed with like pretty extreme South African sun, you get a wine that's ripe without being overripe, but still has some of these herbal components. And I think that's like such a beautiful characteristic in this wine. So, you know, Shiraz or Syrah can have these kind of like black pepper, meat, olivey notes. And then you pair that with some of the kind of tomato leafy, almost like terracotta, like earthy notes of Cabernet. And it's like match made in heaven. It's so good. And then you can add in some of those like strawberry notes from the Grenache and some of these earthier kind of woolly notes from Mourvedre. And like this wine has like layer upon layer of flavor, and it's like so delicious. Luddite is just like such a cool winery. It is a father-daughter team making the wine. That's Niels and Alice. And then the mother, Penny, is doing all the viticulture or vineyard work. So like as a family, they are like very close. They work together, live together on the estate. And like every time I get to hang out and break bread with them, like it's just really fun to see their dynamic, because they kind of all just give each other shit all the time and like just roll with it and have like really a great time doing it. And like they don't take themselves too seriously. I think that's why they named themselves Luddite, for that reason. And then also for the fact that they try to do as many things as possible by hand and without the use of mechanization. And so I think to them, like being a Luddite isn't like being against change, but it's about realizing that like what our hands are capable of versus machines are, you know, it's much greater. And I fully agree. And I think when you taste the wine, you'll see the quality is like incredible. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in, for being a club member. I appreciate it so much. I hope you enjoy the wines this month. It's pretty fun to do a little comparison of same grapes made in very different ways and resulting in very different styles. Also, again, I really hope I'll see some of you at the events with Kiara and Melissa, May 17th through the 23rd. The homepage of my website has all the events listed. There's RSVP links with each event, but you can always hit me up and I'm super happy to answer additional questions or help with our reservations as well. All right, I'll see you next month. Thank you so much.